We're going to deviate from our near nonstop BYU football coverage to talk BYU basketball. Why? Well, Xavion Young refuses to quit, and he adds another high-level talent to his roster.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day, and thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us right here on your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We're now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet just $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket courtesy of YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, let's talk BYU basketball. Yes, I know it's September. Yes, I know BYU football has a game tomorrow night. But BYU basketball making headlines yet again yesterday with the news that broke that BYU added another high-level talent to their roster in the form of Serbian forward, I'm going to screw this up, Mihailo Boskovic. And hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly because apparently I've been mispronouncing all kinds of guys' names recently. If you know, you know. But nonetheless, Boskovich adds another unique talent to this BYU roster in that he's a 6'10" big man who is 22 years old and has a number of professional seasons already under his belt. Well, it begs the question, why is he coming to BYU at this point, Jake? Why is he not sticking over in the Euro League and deciding to make his hay there? Simply put, NIL. That's the big thing about this, folks, is NIL is leveling the playing field. There are a lot of high-level prospects, both in the European ranks and even probably some young players here stateside that would have considered going overseas for a paycheck. But now that NIL is part of the conversation with these athletes, it completely flips the narrative on its head. There are guys willing to forego, in this case, a guy like Boskovich, who's willing to pass on an opportunity to probably play professionally for good money over in Europe to come to BYU, work with Xavion Young and his assistants, and see what he can make of himself. Let's also acknowledge the fact that Boskovich is already a high-level talent. He had entered the 2023 NBA draft before withdrawing and also had some NBA workouts in the lead-up to that draft before deciding to exit the draft process and return to playing overseas. He sees an opportunity here with the BYU basketball program to come in and make noise right away because he's 22 years old. He is much older than the vast majority of his teammates that have added to this roster already for BYU. Think about it this way. You look at guys like Elijah Crawford, Jaeger Demon, all the guys BYU's added, they're 18 and 19-year-old freshmen. They are young bucks relative to what Boskovich is, and he comes to BYU with a ready-made body. He's 6'10". You can tell he weighs well north of 200 pounds, and if you watch his highlight reel, this is a guy who, A, can shoot from outside, he can all the way to the three-point line, but more importantly, can defend on the interior. I could see him playing anywhere along the front line for BYU. In fact, I could see him starting as BYU's 5-man. Now, could you put Keba Keita out there and have him as your 4-man? That is a realistic possibility as well. The good news overall is this is another high-level talent adding to BYU's fortunes this fall and winter and spring as they hope to make some noise in the Big 12 Conference. It's crazy to me that the day BYU starts school, because they officially started school yesterday in Provo, this is a young man who's traveling to Provo, who officially gotten into school, and he's joining the BYU basketball program. Now, it also begs the question, Jake, what is the status? Because we all thought that the scholarships have been allotted. Kadeem Mboop had been the last player that we assumed was going to take up a scholarship for BYU. To my knowledge, as of recording of this podcast, I'm recording this on Wednesday night, and most of you will hear and or listen to it or watch it on Thursday. Kadeem Mboop has not gotten to BYU yet. Now, there is still plenty of time for him to do that. You have roughly a week or so before classes are locked. You have to get enrolled, all that type of stuff for him to arrive on campus. I look at this with regards to Boskovich is if Mboop, for whatever reason, is not able to enroll at BYU, and by the way, I don't have any reason to think he won't at this point. He just hasn't shown up in Provo yet. But if for whatever reason Mboop does not enroll at BYU, well, that scholarship could easily be transferred over to Boskovich. The other thing about this is I mentioned NIL. He thinks highly enough of his opportunity with the BYU basketball program that even if Mboop takes up the last scholarship, it sounds like Boskovich is going to be maybe the most high-level walk-on BYU basketball has quite literally ever had. This is a guy who has got bona fide NBA draft credentials, and if everything goes according to plan, could he, Jaeger Demon, as well as Cannon Catchings next year, make up a draft class for BYU that really never ever seen before? Could all three of them be in the NBA this time next year? That is a realistic possibility if all goes well. This is a guy, Boskovich, who's coming to BYU with plans to compete, and more than likely, I could see him starting for BYU. I could see a realistic possibility. He steps into that four-man role that last year, I know it was under Mark Pope. Remember what Noah Waterman played, kind of that swing four-man role where you got the height, the length, but also can shoot on the outside. That's what Boskovich said. His skill set suggests he would fit and thrive in that spot. The other part about this is this roster continues to get deeper and deeper and more talented. Literally, I just don't understand how deep of a rotation Xavion Young realistically can play with and keep guys happy. And frankly, how many guys are going to be maybe dissatisfied with their role? That's just another conversation for another day. But the good news is right now, the roster is as deep and talented as I can remember it being in my 37 years of life. Many of you are older than I am, and I venture to guess that you probably can't think of a time very often the BYU's had a deeper talent pool than they have right now with this basketball team. So it's really, really impressive to watch what Xavion Young is doing. And oh, by the way, it's not just adding guys to the roster for this year. Yesterday alone, now I'll pull this up. Robbie McCombs is all over this from Vanquish the Foe. He was the first one, I believe, to have a report out there. So props to him on getting the scoop on this. But as he mentioned yesterday, BYU made trips to Utah Prep Academy where they visited with AJ Dybantsa and JJ Mandaquit, obviously top 10 prospects in next year's recruiting cycle. Then they went to Las Vegas and met up with Xavion Staton or Staton. I can't forget how I pronounce his last name correctly. A big man out of Las Vegas, had a meal with him, caught up with him, and then, oh, by the way, hopped a plane and flew all the way to Georgia to meet up with Caleb Wilson, another five-star talent. These are 4- and 5-star talents BYU is visiting all in the same day. And there was a picture that came out from Caleb Wilson that had Xavion Young, the vast majority of his coaching staff there in Georgia, meeting up with Caleb Wilson. They are leaving no stone unturned, quite literally. They are working their literal tails off in the BYU basketball program. And everything that I'm seeing right now from this BYU basketball team screams to me that they are going to be a force in the Big 12 this fall. Now, it's also acknowledged the fact that the Big 12 overall has upgraded, but when you add bona fide NBA draft radar talent, like a guy like Mihailo Boskovic appears to be as a walk-on, that shows you the depth the BYU is going to pose. And I'm not counting BYU out of anything in year one under Xavion Young. It feels like just once again, it's just he's got pocket aces. He's rolling all kinds of incredible things into this BYU basketball program. And literally the sky feels like it's the limit for this BYU hoops team. So we'll see what happens. But another high-level talent being added to BYU's roster and got me to stop talking BYU football for just a little bit. All right, we are going to talk BYU football coming up next, though. A guy that you may have noticed got a surprise start last week. Probably shouldn't be surprised by that. Had a great opportunity to get to know Evan Johnson. Who is he? What is he going to bring to the BYU football program? We're going to get into that next. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel is here for you guys to get you up to speed on everything when it comes to your sports betting needs. No matter what you're into when it comes to sports betting, well, FanDuel has got that for you because they are America's #1 sports book. You hear us talk about FanDuel all the time. We talk about them often. They have a new offer, though. It's a little bit different. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket. No time like the present because guess what? The NFL season starts this Sunday. You get that from YouTube and YouTube TV, courtesy of our friends over at FanDuel. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. Of course, you can cancel at any time. I can attest that I am a huge fan of YouTube TV. It's an incredible service. So take advantage of this offer today. Visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook app. That's FanDuel.com and take advantage of this offer to get your free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen and or view of the day. If you've not done so already, make sure you check out one of our sister shows, Locked On College Football. It's a great look at everything going on in the greater college football universe. Spencer McLaughlin, a good friend of mine, the voice of the Southern Utah Thunderbirds, is the host of Locked On College Football. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. It's also available on YouTube. All right, I had a great opportunity earlier this week at BYU football practice to catch up with Evan Johnson. Now, some of you may have noticed, number 21 starting for the BYU football program last Saturday against Southern Illinois at cornerback. Jacob Robinson got the start essentially as the nickelback or slot corner. And then opposite that, you had Mark Collins at corner as well. Well, who is number 21? His name is Evan Johnson. Who is he? What is he bringing to the BYU football program? And was he surprised by the fact that he got a spot start here for BYU? And is it a spot start? Could it be part of the rotation going forward? And what does he expect against SMU? All that and more in this conversation right here on Locked On Cougars. How did you feel about your performance overall in that opener?
I felt I played good. I had a couple plays where I felt like I really could have played great, like that out route and those deep balls, just plays I could really go get the ball and really change the game. But other than that, I felt like I played good for my first game, got the jitters out. So now I feel like I'm really confident enough to go up against anybody. So that's a big thing for me.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because I think you're kind of the guy in the cornerback room that most people probably don't know at this point. How does that feel to kind of be that unknown dude out there?
It doesn't really bother me a lot, because, I've been putting in the work. So it's just cool to kind of see it really pay off now and just to be able to go out there and make plays and just have fun with my brothers. So.
Okay. What has led to you to getting to the point where you're at right now?
I would say just Coach G. He's just trusted me ever since I came out of high school. Going to a small high school where not many people go D1 or are playing. It's really good to have that trust, or a coach that trusts you and kind of guides you through all these ropes, who's been through the same thing. So I feel like he's been a big part in helping me get to where I am today.
How did he find you? Like, were you going to camps? Like, what's that backstory?
So Coach Clune, the old linebackers coach, he's from a town about 45 minutes from me. Okay. So he follows just a sports journalist around us. And one game I had like 5 touchdowns and like threw for 1 too. And so he kind of just hit me up. And then from there, it just kind of worked out. It came to my school, talked to me, and then I came out for my visit and I got the offer. So.
And I understand that you were mainly an offensive player in high school. Why the switch to defense?
Coach G just kind of saw my track times, my speed. I ran like 10.41 in 100, so he saw that. And then like a lot of my high school film is me being able to go up and get the ball. So just having those two skill sets, he kind of just knew that I was able to play DB.
Did it take you some time, though, to finally adapt to playing corner in particular full time?
Yeah, 100%. You asked me, corner is the hardest position in football. And coming from me, I didn't play defense at all. So really, for me, it was a mindset change. Just really changing that mindset from getting hit to hitting people, and then just learning the technique. I learned from a lot of great guys. I think Eddie was a really good dude to learn from. Cam Garrett was another good one. And then just Jacob and Rob and Coach G, they've just helped me really perfect my craft and really find my technique that works best for me.
Now, you talk about cornerback being in a very difficult position to play. Obviously, it requires you to do multiple things at once. I guess I'm just going to speak for you here. We saw you out there with the first-string defense for a large chunk of that game on Saturday night, and was that validating that essentially all the work you've done has led up to you being a first-string player?
Yeah, it definitely has. It's good to, really see that work paying off, but, anybody in our room can go, like we got Jaden Dunlap, Trey, Jonathan, Chica. Yeah. We got so many people in the room who can really go if they need to. So, even if I wasn't the one that had to step up, I know many other people would. So,
obviously, this week you guys got SMU headed to Texas. What changes for you, I guess, as a cornerback in this matchup versus maybe what you saw against Southern Illinois?
Not a lot of changes. Just trust the scheme and trust the film that I've been watching, and just go make plays and just really trust my ability. That's one thing that my dad really embedded in me, is that I'm here for a reason and that, I can go up against anyone.
SMU seems to, and this is my perception, they run a lot of RPO action. How difficult is it as a corner to deal with the fact that, hey, this could be handed off or thrown at any point?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. Just in the games, those are all in the moment plays, RPO or not, you're going to go make the play, So I wouldn't really say that's a big deal for us as a corner room because, I know we got playmakers in there who are going to get the job done.
First road game of the season, what are you expecting?
Man, hostility.
Okay.
I mean, I'm excited though, I'm excited to really hear people booing me, all that stuff, like I want to be able to make a play and just hear the crowd all mad and stuff. So that's probably what I'm most excited for.
Now, we saw Jacob play a lot of that nickel, that slot cornerback role. So does that essentially force you up into the outside position that he vacates in essence?
Yeah. Yeah, but we also have many other dudes who can play nickel too. So, I mean, whether Jacob's on the outside or the inside, we got a great defense. So,
what is I don't know how to say this. What's the best part about going on the road as a college football player?
I mean, for me, it's getting to travel and see different environments, I mean, being in Provo, you don't see a lot of diversity or a lot of different people. So, I mean, just being able to go out there and see the world and see the country, it's my favorite thing to do.
And how's your Big 12 experience overall been a year in now?
It's been great, I feel like for me, the best part about it has just been the players that have came in, Like, again, Eddie was a big player that really helped me develop my craft, and he really took me under his wing and, like, just helped me become the best I could be, so.
Was it more like philosophy type stuff that he was helping you with?
Everything, whether that's from the playbook, which he's been in for a while, to the scheme, to technique, just telling me little stuff. I remember the biggest thing he's told me is, you can mess up, just don't mess up in the same thing twice. And that's been a big thing that I've kept, and I've kind of told the younger guys now.
Well, we got a philosophy in radio. Once is a mistake, 2 times is a problem.
Yep.
So kind of similar, I think, in that respect. Now, you obviously are stepping in more into, leadership role. That's the last thing I wanted to ask you about. Looking at guys like Trey and Jonathan Kabea in particular, what are you doing to essentially do what Eddie did for you?
Well, Trey and Jonathan, they got a lot of good resources too, I'm definitely helping them, but they came in a lot more polished than I did, They've been playing defense their whole life, so yeah, there's things they still need to work on and need help with, but a lot of the things that they know now I didn't know coming in. So I feel like they're more well prepared, and then just the resources we have now just kind of help better them.
Am I okay to call you the new Chris Wilcox? You know about Chris's background?
I don't.
Well, he was an offensive player in high school as well and came in here and ended up going to the NFL as a cornerback.
No, I didn't know that.
So maybe that's your track, I guess.
Hey, maybe. I'm Evan Johnson, though.
All right, that's totally fine. Well, Evan, thanks for the time, man.
Yeah, no problem.
There you go. He is Evan Johnson. I acknowledge that. And crazily enough, he said he didn't hear about Chris Wilcox. I literally talked to him after we pushed stop on the recording. He had never heard about Chris Wilcox and his transformation from a primarily offensive player at the high school ranks into an NFL caliber cornerback. I was kind of crazy to me they had not ever broached that topic with him, but it really kind of feels like the same story here with Evan Johnson. But Evan looks the part, plays the part, and I'm eager to see what he can prove in his time remaining in his BYU football career. This is a young man who has emerged, I think, seemingly out of nowhere for a lot of us. And I mentioned that in the interview about a guy that kind of the mystery man when it comes to BYU's cornerbacks. I hear you guys ask me all the time about guys like Trey Alexander, who we talked about, Jonathan Kabea, Marcus McKenzie, a lot of the young bucks in this cornerback room, but very rarely have I ever had anybody ask me about Evan Johnson. I think that's kind of the way he enjoys doing what he's doing. He's kind of flying under the radar, gets a start last week against Southern Illinois. And considering that Maury Bamba is still out due to injury, well, he very well could start once again this week against SMU. And if he reprises his role to the level he did against Southern Illinois, wouldn't surprise me if he continues to start for the BYU football program. So big thank you once again to Evan Johnson for having a chat, and really good to get to know this young man. He's got a gregarious personality. I really enjoyed talking with him. We talked for about 10 minutes after the interview as well, and really like that young man. All right, we will finish up today's show with your guys' question. I threw it out to our Locked On Cougars Insider group for our weekly mailbag. We'll get to as many of the questions as we can in the time remaining here on today's podcast, and we'll do that next. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is here for you guys to help you out with your small business. You want to find quality professionals that are right for the role that you happen to be hiring for. That's why you guys need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team. More importantly, they do it faster and they do it for free. LinkedIn is not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you find hire professionals that you can't find literally anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively looking for a new job might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70, you count that 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place, my friends. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours of their job posting. Hire professionals like a professional and do it with our friends on LinkedIn. 2.5 million small businesses are using their LinkedIn profile for their hiring. Why aren't you? Take advantage today by posting your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post that job for free. Of course, some terms and conditions apply. But once again, it's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, first view of the day for those of you watching this on YouTube. It is time now for our Locked On Cougars Insider Group to take the stage. They get a chance, an exclusive chance, to ask the questions here on the podcast. If you would like to have that opportunity, join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. There's a hyperlink in the show notes, whether you're watching and or listening to this. Join us today. It's a 14-day free trial, one-on-one conversations, updates I'm sending out of what I'm hearing about BYU sports, basketball, and football in particular. They get to you in the form of a text message. You don't have to go to a message board. You don't have to log into a website to see the updates. They're coming to you directly to your mobile device via text. You have one-on-one conversations with myself, and it's just $5 a month after that initial 14-day trial. If you want to continue on, we've got a really, really strong community and hope that many more of you will join us in the coming days and months ahead. All right, let's talk about what you guys want to talk about from a Locked On Cougars Insider perspective. All right, first question comes from Bryce. A great question here. Looking forward to this Friday's game against SMU. Are the statistical thresholds you would like BYU to meet or stay under in certain cases in order to win this game against SMU? I'm talking both offensive and defensive stats. Offensively, I'd like to see BYU go over 400 yards again in this game. I feel like this could end up being a bit of a shootout if everything goes the way I envision it could. We'll do more of a deeper dive on my expectations for SMU tomorrow in our traditional preview edition of the podcast. But defensively, I think BYU wins this game if they keep SMU under 30 points. Now, that's asking BYU football to score 30 in their own right, or 30 or more, I should say. But I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. This is an SMU team that I still think has much to prove, and I'm not completely sold on them being the world beaters that some people happen to be saying that they are. So we'll see what happens. But I guess those are two of the statistics. I think I see BYU run for 150 plus in this game. Keep Brashard, their running back. I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. Keep SMU under 150 rushing. That'd go a long way as well to helping BYU win this game. That's just a couple of notes there. Taylor asked this: which freshman stood out to you most in game one, and who do you think breaks out before conference play? It's a great question. I would say that I'm really, really impressed with what Ephraim Asiata continues to show. He's severely undersized, and it's nothing against him. This is a kid who has come back literally from the brink of death after a shooting in high school to play high-level Power 4 football. He shows a slippery ability to get to the quarterback, and he's probably 200 pounds on a good day right now. You think about the future with this kid. If he packs on 20, 30, 40 pounds and becomes a bona fide pass rusher, what he's doing at the undersized weight he's playing at is absolutely remarkable. I was really impressed with him from game one. It kind of stands out maybe before conference play begins. Keep an eye on Trey Alexander. I think at corner, he can make some noise. Obviously, we just talked with Evan Johnson. He was high on what Trey is bringing to BYU. And also Tommy Prassis. I think Tommy Prassis is going to be a very, very capable rotation piece at safety. I still think Tanner Wall holds down that free safety spot, but if he ever needs a blow, Tommy Prassis, I think he's got the goods to be a really, really good football player. All right, Nick Chadwick, if BYU finishes with a record that gets into a bowl game, do you see any changes to the coaching staff? I can't say you wouldn't, because guys may leave of their own volition. That obviously is a possibility, Nick. And let's be honest, if you have success at the Power 4 level, guess what? There's other programs who are willing to pick off guys that they see as young talents to add to their staff. But I don't see Kalani Sitake wanting to make changes just for change's sake. He is a guy who's very loyal to his people. We all know this. For better or worse, he is loyal to his guys. And I don't see him making a move if they do make it to a bowl. Danny Drew, can BYU pull off a miracle and go 9-3? If they beat SMU, it's not out of the realm of possibility. If they start 3-0, they beat SMU this Friday. They beat Wyoming a week from Saturday. They're 3-0. Well, you're going to be riding high. And obviously, you have a bunch of the tougher games on your schedule, the ranked teams in the Big 12 coming to your house. There's a big opportunity for BYU. If they get on a roll here, there's no reason to think they can't go to 9-3. I'm still saying that I'm going to still consider to sit at 6-6 and consider it a success this year. I want to see positive steps. 7-5, 8-4, 9-3, as you mentioned, Danny. They pull that off. Hey, it's more gravy on top of everything else right now. Michael asked this. Billy Embody, who we had on the show yesterday, if you missed it, a great chat with Ponies Insider, SMU Mustangs Insider, Billy Embody, said, Jake Retzloff isn't very mobile. What is your take on that? I don't think he's wrong, but he's also not right. Here's the deal with Jake Retzloff. He's not a true dual threat quarterback. I think the last dual threat quarterback BYU truly had was Jaron Hall. I would consider Jaron a true dual threat quarterback. What Jake is he's more in the mold of Zach Wilson. I'm not saying Zach Wilson because Zach was absolutely phenomenal, and I think he's a level above a quarterback just in terms of overall above what Jake Retzloff is, but the style of play. Remember, Zach, he could run the ball when needed. Was he being called to run a true read option all the time? No, but when he needed to pull the ball and run with it, he was more than capable. Jake is exactly that. And if SMU wants to believe that he's a statue in back there and he's a true pocket passer, more power to him. It's an advantage for BYU because they'll surprise him when he does pull it and scoot, because Jake can scoot. He can run. So I really think there's a nice opportunity there. If Billy and the rest of SMU is overlooking that, that'd be really fun to see that. Andy asked this. How hard was it during the crossover episode not to tell that BYU is going to steamroll the Mustangs? Go Cougs. There were a couple of things I wanted to kind of push back on with Billy, but he's the guest on the show. I figured to let him have his say, and I will retort in a way tomorrow on our preview edition as I kind of break down what I see. Because I'll just say this. I have watched the entirety of BYU's bowl game against SMU from the 2022 New Mexico Bowl. I've watched the entirety of the Nevada SMU game twice now. And I also watched the the Houston Christian SMU game as well to get a feel for SMU. I feel like I've got some ideas of what BYU might be able to exploit, and we'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. He also adds this. Do we know when AJ Dybantsa is going to announce his commitment? Anytime now, obviously. It'd be really fun, Andy, but yeah, it was a bit funny there. Scott Simpson, Jake, what is the biggest area of improvement you would like to see from game 1 to game 2? I want to see more from the offensive line. We heard Connor Pay say it earlier this week on the podcast. His hand placement, he felt like, was absolutely atrocious in this game. And he's not wrong about this because Jake Castle asked this. I'm going to take mine from the film review that Blair Red did. On JoJo's touchdown bomb, what happened to the O-line? Three defensive linemen beat BYU's offensive line to get pressure on Jake on that throw. It's got to be better. The BYU O-line struggled a bit with their pass protection. So I want to see more from the offensive line in front of Jake. I know it's not an improvement for Jake, Scott, but I do also want to see Jake's footwork improve. Remember, he was throwing off his back foot quite a bit. And he gets away with it because he's got a very, very good arm. He's got a gunslinger ability to just kind of throw from any arm angle, it feels like. But I like to see him step more into those throws, step up into the pocket, be better with your footwork, and be cleaner in that pocket. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Spencer Gonzalez, after week 1, who's your sleeper player of the year? That's a good question. One who you expect to greatly outperform their expectations. QBs not included. Okay, so QBs are left alone. Sleeper player of the year. I'm going to say JoJo Phillips. I don't know that JoJo kind of burst onto the scene because you score a 57-yard touchdown, went 60 yards in the air for BYU in game 1. It's obviously going to put you on the radar. But JoJo has got elite skill, folks. He's 6'5". He can absolutely fly down the field. He's got really, really nice ball skills as a former basketball player. He is just kind of scratching the surface of his potential, it feels like, because as Aaron Roderick said this week, he only played 1 year of high school football. He has got a ton of potential in him. So keep an eye on that. Other questions here. Let's see. Is the BYU basketball men's team full? From Tanya. It's a good point. I'm uber excited for tip-off, but not until SMU. I'm receiving thorough coverage, so no burning questions. I just need my first listen of the day. Smiling face. Well, Tanya, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. But it is very exciting to consider what BYU basketball could be. But obviously, we've got to get through football season, and that obviously takes the headlines right now. Let's see. Final one here. This is a good one from Chris Kral. Jake, I saw something that indicated BYU can't get 2 of their football commits from the Bay Area admitted into school. Do you have any information on Sefo Akila and Naki Tuakoi? Now, Jay Hill said last week that BYU was hoping that one of the guys, and it's in theory one of these two, Sefo Akila and Naki Tuakoi, could get enrolled by this week for BYU. I don't have any intel as of recording of this podcast that either one has enrolled in Provo, but if I do, I'll be happy to pass it along. The biggest thing I understand about their situation is there's just been some difficulties getting them admitted to school. I don't know what that entails. And with BYU, it can entail a whole litany of things. You guys out there in Cougar Nation know how unique of a university BYU is. I don't see it as a positive. They couldn't get enrolled right away, and obviously they're still waiting, speaking of BYU, on these two players. But I sincerely hope that both of them finally make their way to Provo because they are very, very talented football players, and I think BYU could do them a lot of good just with their ability to develop talent. So, and obviously the environment around BYU, the whole thing, the whole experience of BYU is fairly unique. We all know this. But as I understand it, there's just been some difficulties getting these two enrolled in Provo. Now, could that change on a dime? Probably. But as of recording of this podcast, once again, on a Wednesday night, neither one of them have enrolled. And maybe at this point, you're probably looking maybe towards them gray shirting this year, in theory, because gray shirt means you're enrolled, but you're not enrolled. Maybe just sitting out until January and joining the team. We'll see what happens. But that's what I know right now, Chris. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. I think I got through all the questions that were submitted on our Locked On Cougars Insider group. I will comb through those, but we are out of time regardless. Anything I do find in the meantime, we'll answer them on tomorrow's show. So once again, tomorrow, we get you ready for SMU. What am I seeing on tape? What do I believe BYU can attack in this game in the lead up to that kickoff at 5 o'clock Mountain Time? Well, we'll dig into that on our Friday edition of the podcast. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Thank you to all of you who are everydayers as well. And until tomorrow, when it's a game day, everybody, let's get ready for it. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast.